Everyone praised my sister for being selfless, until I discovered the charity she started in my name was actually a front to funnel money she stole from our family business. When the truth surfaced, her perfect image collapsed, and suddenly my warnings didn't sound dramatic anymore. The applause wasn't for me, but my name echoed through the hall. I sat in the back row watching my sister smile as the mayor praised her selfless charity. Every banner carried my name, yet every cheer belonged to her. Neighbors leaned toward me, whispering how lucky I was to have such a saint in the family. And all I could do was nod, hiding the unease that had begun to gnaw at me. The community adored her. At every gathering she was the shining star. People spoke of her generosity as if she had single-handedly saved the town. I remember Mrs. Khan clutching my hand saying, "Your sister is a blessing to us all." I forced a smile, but inside I felt the weight of something I couldn't name. It wasn't envy. It was the strange discomfort of watching someone wear a mask so perfectly that even I began to doubt my own instincts. At home the admiration grew louder. My parents glowed with pride, their voices swelling whenever her name was mentioned. At family dinners, my father would raise his glass, declaring, "To our daughter, the one who makes us proud every day." My mother's eyes would shine as if she had birthed a saint. I sat quietly, pushing food around my plate, noticing the subtle arrogance in my sister's smile. She tilted her head, feigning humility, but her eyes betrayed satisfaction. Her kindness often felt rehearsed. One evening, a neighbor's child came to our door, asking for help with school fees. My sister handed over money with a flourish, ensuring everyone in the room saw it. Later, when the child left, she muttered that she'd keep them quiet for a while. I froze, wondering if I had misheard, but the smirk on her face confirmed it. My uneasiness grew with incidents like these. Whenever I asked her about the charity's finances, she brushed me off. "You wouldn't understand," she'd say, her tone sharp as if I was intruding on something sacred. Once I pressed harder, asking where the donations came from. She snapped, "Why do you care? It's in your name, isn't that enough?" That sentence lingered in my mind for weeks. It was supposed to be an honor, yet it felt like a trap. The charity itself was strange from the beginning. She insisted on naming it after me, claiming it was a gesture of love. "You've always been the quiet one," she said. "This way people will see you too." At first I felt touched, even grateful. But as the organization grew, I realized I had no role in it. My name was plastered on banners, printed on brochures, spoken at events. But I had no say, no involvement, no control. It was as if she had borrowed my identity to build her empire of goodwill. One evening stands out vividly. I was walking past her room late at night when I heard her voice on the phone. Her tone was sharp, impatient, nothing like the gentle, soothing voice she used in public. "No, keep it quiet," she hissed. "They don't need to know where the money comes from. Just make sure the accounts look clean." I froze outside her door, my breath caught in my throat. The words were muffled, but the intent was clear. She wasn't talking like a selfless benefactor. She was talking like someone hiding something. I tiptoed back to my room, my mind racing. Could it be that the charity wasn't what it seemed? I tried to dismiss the thought, telling myself I might have misunderstood. But the unease stayed with me, growing heavier each time I saw her bask in admiration. The next week, at another community event, she stood on stage, thanking donors and promising transparency. Her voice was warm, her smile radiant, and the crowd adored her. I watched from the back, remembering the sharpness in her voice that night, the secrecy in her words. It was like watching two different people, the saint everyone loved and the stranger I had overheard. At home, the tension between us deepened. She began to avoid me, locking her office door whenever she worked on charity documents. Once I knocked, asking if she needed help. She opened the door just a crack, her eyes cold. "No," she said flatly, "I can handle it." Then she shut the door in my face. I started noticing her arrogance more clearly. At family dinners, she corrected my parents with a tone that bordered on condescending. When relatives praised her, she accepted it with a smug smile, pretending humility but clearly enjoying the spotlight. I felt like a shadow in my own family, my warnings swallowed by their pride. One small incident confirmed my growing suspicion. A local shopkeeper mentioned that my sister had bought expensive jewelry recently. "Strange," he said, "for someone who gives so much away." I nodded, pretending not to care, but inside the puzzle pieces were shifting. Where was the money coming from? How could she afford luxuries while running a charity supposedly for the poor? The illusion of selflessness was powerful, almost blinding. Everyone saw her as a savior while I saw cracks in the mask. Each incident, each dismissive comment, each secretive phone call added weight to my unease. I felt trapped between admiration and suspicion, unable to prove anything yet unable to ignore the signs. That night outside her door remained etched in my memory. Her voice, sharp and commanding, was so different from the angelic tone she used in public. It was the first time I truly questioned her intentions, the first time I wondered if the charity in my name was not a gift but a cover. And so, while the community continued to praise her, while my parents basked in pride, I carried the burden of doubt. I smiled when others called her selfless, but inside I knew something was wrong. The illusion was strong, but illusions always crack eventually. The illusion had cracked, but I still didn't know how deep the fracture ran. That night, lying awake, I couldn't shake the sound of her voice on the phone. Sharp, commanding, nothing like the angelic tone she used in public. My instincts screamed that something was wrong, yet I had no proof. Proof was what I needed, and proof was what I eventually found. It started with a stack of papers I wasn't supposed to see. I was in my father's office one afternoon, searching for an old invoice, when I noticed a folder tucked behind the ledgers. It wasn't unusual for documents to be misplaced, but the way it was hidden caught my attention. I pulled it out, opened it, and froze. The numbers didn't add up. Large sums were missing from the family business accounts, amounts too significant to be explained away as clerical errors. My heart pounded as I traced the entries, line after line, until I saw the name of her charity listed as a recipient. My name was there too, printed neatly on the paperwork, but I had never authorized a single transaction. I remember gripping the edge of the desk, my knuckles white as the realization sank in. She wasn't just basking in admiration, she was funneling money from our own family business into the charity. My charity, at least in name. The betrayal hit me like a cold wind, but I forced myself to stay calm. I copied the documents quietly, slipping them into my bag before anyone could notice. That evening I confronted her. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone, her expression relaxed. I placed the papers on the table between us. "Explain this," I said, my voice steady but trembling underneath. She glanced at the documents, then back at me, her face unreadable. "Where did you get these?" she asked, her tone flat. "From the office," I replied. "Money is missing. It's going into your charity. Into my name." For a moment, silence hung between us. Then she laughed. A short, sharp sound that chilled me. "You don't understand business," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "These are transfers. Perfectly normal. You're making drama out of nothing." But her eyes betrayed her. They were cold, distant, stripped of the warmth she showed the world. I had never seen that side of her before, and it unsettled me more than the documents themselves. I pressed on. "Normal transfers don't hide behind folders. Normal transfers don't drain accounts. Tell me the truth." Her smile vanished. "You're jealous," she snapped. "You've always been jealous. You can't stand that people admire me, so now you're inventing stories." The words stung, but what hurt more was the certainty in her tone. She wasn't panicked, she wasn't apologetic, she was defiant. That defiance told me everything I needed to know. When I tried to share my discovery with the family, they refused to believe me. My father frowned, accusing me of being bitter. "Your sister has done more for this community than anyone else," he said. "Don't tarnish her name with baseless accusations." My mother shook her head, her voice trembling. "You're imagining things. She would never do something like that." Their disbelief cut deeper than my sister's denial. I felt isolated, dismissed, as though my words carried no weight. Relatives whispered that I was envious. Neighbors avoided the topic altogether. I became the villain in a story where she was the hero. Yet small incidents kept confirming my suspicions. I noticed her wearing new jewelry, pieces far too expensive for someone supposedly dedicating every penny to charity. She drove a new car one morning, claiming it was a gift from a donor, though she refused to say who. Whenever I asked about the charity's donors, she grew nervous, changing the subject or leaving the room. And her office door, always locked now even when she was inside. One afternoon I caught her shredding papers. The sound of the machine filled the hallway, and when I asked what she was doing, she snapped, "Cleaning up old files." but the look in her eyes was sharp, defensive, as if she had been caught in the act. The tension between us grew unbearable. I avoided her when I could, but the weight of the truth pressed on me constantly. I knew I needed undeniable proof, something no one could dismiss. That proof came in the form of a bank statement. I had gone to the bank to resolve a minor issue with my own account when the clerk, recognizing my name, handed me a statement linked to the charity. "Since it's under your name," he said casually. I stared at the paper, my breath catching. The numbers were clear. Money from the family business had been funneled directly into the charity's account, then withdrawn in cash. Large amounts, repeated over months. I walked out of the bank with the statement clutched in my hand, my legs trembling. The world around me blurred. The traffic, the voices, the sunlight, all drowned out by the pounding in my chest. It was undeniable now. She had betrayed us all. That night I sat alone in my room staring at the statement. My emotions tangled. Anger, sorrow, disbelief. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust, family, and the mask she had worn so convincingly. She had stolen not only from the business but from the people who believed in her, from the parents who adored her, from me, whose name she had used as a shield. I thought about the dinners where my father raised his glass, the neighbors who called her an angel, the children who thanked her for help. All of it built on lies. And I thought about myself sitting quietly in the shadows, dismissed as jealous, bitter, dramatic. The breaking point had arrived. I could no longer stay silent, no longer carry the burden alone. The truth was in my hands, undeniable and sharp as glass. And though I didn't yet know how the world would react, I knew one thing with certainty. The mask was about to shatter. The mask was about to shatter, and I knew it wouldn't be quiet. The bank statement in my hands felt heavier than paper. It was the weight of truth, undeniable and sharp. I didn't have to imagine what would happen once it surfaced. I was about to witness it. The day came sooner than I expected. A local council meeting had been scheduled, one where my sister was set to present her charity's annual report. The hall was crowded, filled with townspeople, donors, and officials. I sat near the back, the statement folded neatly inside my bag, my pulse racing. She walked in with her usual grace, dressed impeccably, smiling at everyone as though she had nothing to hide. When the chairman asked for questions after her glowing presentation, I stood. My voice was steady, though my hands trembled. "I have documents," I said, pulling the statement from my bag, "that show money from our family business being funneled into this charity. Withdrawn in cash." Repeatedly. The room fell silent. My words hung in the air like smoke. My sister's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing as the papers were passed to the chairman. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People leaned forward, whispering, their faces shifting from admiration to confusion, then to disbelief. The chairman cleared his throat, scanning the numbers. "These are serious claims," he said, his voice heavy. "If true, they demand explanation." My sister rose, her composure cracking. "This is nonsense," she snapped. "He's jealous, always has been. These papers mean nothing." But the crowd wasn't convinced. The numbers spoke louder than her denial. A donor stood, his voice shaking. "I gave money to help families, not to fund luxuries. Is this what you've been doing?" Her face drained of color. For the first time she looked cornered. The whispers grew louder, turning into accusations. "Fraud," someone muttered. "Deception," another said. The perfect image she had built began to crumble right there in front of everyone. At home the collapse was even more painful. My parents sat in the living room, the statement spread across the table. My father's hands trembled as he held the papers, his face pale. "How could you?" he whispered, his voice breaking. My mother stared at my sister, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We believed in you," she said softly. "We defended you." The silence that followed was unbearable. For years they had raised their glasses to her, proud of her supposed selflessness. Now that pride had turned into humiliation. They couldn't look at the neighbors, couldn't face the relatives who had once praised their daughter. The house felt heavy, filled with shame. My sister tried to argue, tried to twist the story, but no one listened anymore. Her words carried no weight. The coldness in her eyes remained, but the arrogance was gone. She was stripped of the admiration she had thrived on, left exposed and vulnerable. Her downfall was swift. Friends stopped calling. Donors withdrew their support. Invitations to events vanished. The same people who once praised her now avoided her, unwilling to be associated with scandal. She walked through town with her head lowered, no longer greeted with smiles or applause. The charity office, once bustling, grew quiet. Volunteers left, doors closed, and the banners with my name faded in the sun. I watched her isolation grow. She spent hours alone in her room, curtains drawn, the sound of silence pressing against the walls. The woman who had once commanded admiration now lived in shadows. She became a ghost in her own home, her presence heavy but hollow. For me, the shift was bittersweet. People who had dismissed me began to apologize. Neighbors stopped me in the street saying, "We should have listened." Relatives admitted they had been wrong. My voice, once ignored, finally carried weight. It was vindication, but it came with sorrow. I hadn't wanted to be right in this way. I remember one evening when Mrs. Kahn, the same neighbor who once called my sister an angel, came to my door. She held my hand and said, "I doubted you. I thought you were bitter." "I'm sorry." Her words were kind, but they carried the sting of years of disbelief. Vindication didn't erase the pain. It didn't undo the nights I spent questioning myself, wondering if I was imagining things. It didn't heal the wound of being dismissed by my own family. But it gave me strength. It reminded me that instincts matter, that truth eventually surfaces, no matter how deeply it's buried. Closure came slowly. I spent time reflecting, sitting alone in the quiet corners of the house. Betrayal had changed me. It had taught me to trust my instincts even when the world refused to listen. It had shown me the danger of blind admiration, the risk of worshipping an image without questioning what lies beneath. I thought about revenge, about the satisfaction of watching her fall. But revenge wasn't the lesson. Justice was. Truth was. The collapse of her perfect image wasn't just her downfall. It was a reminder to everyone that masks can't last forever. One night I walked past her room. The door was open, the curtains drawn back. She sat alone, staring at nothing, her face pale, her eyes empty. For a moment I felt pity. She had built her life on deception, and now she was living in the ruins. But pity didn't erase the betrayal. It didn't erase the pain she had caused. I turned away, carrying with me the lesson that had cost so much. Trust is fragile. Admiration can blind. And sometimes the people we believe in most are the ones who betray us deepest. Her perfect image had collapsed, and with it the illusion that had haunted me for years. I was free now, not because she had fallen, but because the truth had finally been seen.